This may have a little bit of a quality of rant to it. My observation is that hobby games are becoming more and more like bagatelles. What's a bagatelle? A thing of little importance, a very easy task. Something like a party game, in fact. Every game is an activity, but games are sometimes much more than merely an activity. They can be intellectually interesting and even challenging. So games don't need to be merely activities that don't engage the mind with decisions that don't matter. But many hobby games are now of this nature. Well, again, what we used to call party games, to be played in a harmless, stress-free environment, a party more or less. Now, old-style games, which I call opposed games, are quite different. There may have been party games in pre-modern times, I don't know, but what we are familiar with from those times is a variety of opposed games. Opposed because the opponent or opponents can do things to hinder or harm you. There's tension and ego involvement in an opposed game. It will rarely be in a harmless, stress-free environment. But contemporary games are different. People see hobby games as a social activity with little importance attached to the outcome, just as with party games. People who want their games to be harmless, innocuous, are unlikely to be playing opposed games. At best, they're playing parallel competitions, which are often puzzles disguised as games. It is, after all, the age of comfort. People are taught they should be comfortable all the time. And it's also the age of helicopter parents. Helicopter parents shield their children from anything that is uncomfortable, that might harm them. And so they don't particularly want their kids to be playing opposed games, especially war games. But you see this in video games as well. You can't even lose a typical video game. Even in team competition video games, when you get killed, you end up better off than when you started. So games have become more about reward, or at least no negative consequences, than about consequence or responsibility. Free-to-play games, which are very common nowadays, mean that developers have to reward players enough that they'll keep playing long enough to spend some money. So again, we avoid negative consequences. So what are Bagatelle era standards like? Well, I heard someone call Love Letter a strategy game, quote unquote. And I was astonished. I suppose they said that because you have to pay attention to what cards are played in order to avoid a pure guessing game. But it's still a guessing game at heart, and someone won without looking at the cards. In a strategy game, you have to outthink the opposition. This has become a rarity. Keeping in mind that publishers must make products that customers want, not what the designers want, this trend is quite daunting. Thanks for listening.